Sand Ta and the 12 Days of Hookshots, a Majora's Mask Christmas Tale. 'Twas the very last eve before the carnival, and one brave young girl wove her mask into a barnacle. Her parents kicked her out of the house. You see, the mask was not a great big mouse. Since the days of her family's long-dead elders, all masks were mice, even those made by the welders. Poor little Alexandria cried and cried until red bulging veins o'ertook her eyes. She ran fast to the plaza with her dearest friend Fraza. They conspired to blow up the tower, all within the very next hour. How her parents would scream, "We should have been nicer, poor Alex was wiser." She laughed and laughed, so delighted by her craft, until a boy dressed in green and a fairy wrapped in white strolled into the city, all ready for a fight. Alexandria gasped with delight at the fairy, all ready to dance and make merry. The fairy flew down to the little girl, looking like she'd dance in a teeny swirl.
"Scram!"
Tattle exclaimed.
"I don't have time for you to ogle at me with those big, stupid eyes, kid. Can't you see my friend's about to die? How could you be so selfish?"
The little girl's hopeful, expectant face exploded into tears, and she ran to the laundry pool with her friend. The South Clocktown Plaza was mostly deserted. The clock tower's massive wheels spun behind them, ticking away the final hours until disaster. The moon was a formidable opponent above them. Link winced, hunched over from his injuries, which excessively bled. "Don't you think that was a little harsh?" he asked.
"No,"
she said.
"If I had a rupee for every little girl who wants to dance with a fairy, we'd afford a caretaker on call everywhere we went."
"I'll be fine, Tattle," Link said. "It's just a minor flesh wound."
"The Skull Kid threw you into a pit of lions and ignited a powder keg under the arena. The explosion launched you into the Like-Like's mouth, which then carried you halfway across Woodfall before vomiting you into the poison swamp."
"Exactly," Link said. "It wasn't that bad. The lions only got a few scratches in, and the poison was very diluted in that part of the swamp." Tattle scoffed.
"Bah, humbug. Let's just play the Song of Time so we can ask Shikashi to heal you in the next cycle."
"Yeah," Link said glumly. "Too bad Shikashi got set aflame, decapitated, and then eaten by cannibals in this cycle. It's been a pretty grim 3 days, even for us." He pulled the Ocarina of Time from his belt and brought it to his lips. Tattle flew to rest on his shoulder as a familiar ancient tune, passed down by the royal family, echoed in the most abandoned plaza. Terminus' final moonquake held no power over them as darkness overtook them. The empty chasm called time welcomed them, warm and numbing as it replaced the empty stalls and gentle tick of the clock tower's face. Link faced it many times, and each cycle it felt like the most blissful sleep in his life. He surrendered easily to the magic of the goddesses, ready to wake at the clock tower doors and face the bright, hopeful sunrise of a new cycle. And then he felt a coarse, dry twine pressed against his face. Link opened his eyes. Oblivion had been broken by a white, finely threaded butterfly net, except large enough for a horse. The boy had fallen right into it, his nose pressed against the rough material. He hung upside down inside of it with Tattle still on his shoulder. Link balked, unsure when the time-travel tunnel had become a physical tunnel. "What the—" The net whisked him quickly to the side, and the prism of ethereal clocks shattered. Link rolled onto cold, wet snow. Tattle spun off his shoulder, catching herself with her wings. "Get behind me!" Link said, jumping to his feet and drawing his gilded sword. The fairy obeyed as they took in their surroundings. The net was gone, as well as whoever had captured them. The sky was a gray landscape of clouds hovering above a plain of snow. Flakes fell softly to the ground, and there was nothing but shades of black and white in every direction, except a humble, unassuming shack a mere 100 feet away.
"Are we in Snowhead?"
Tattle asked. "Or maybe a magical prison," Link said. "That looks like the masked salesman's shack." She flew around him cautiously, inching her way closer to the unassuming home, isolated by a gentle winter day. "Someone brought us here," Link said. And they're not being forthcoming about their reasons. If they can break through the realm of time, they mean business.
Then keep your sword ready, Deku Brain.
Tattle opened the door herself. It seemed as frail as a piece of paper as it creaked on its hinges. A dark room, void of any detail, was obscured in shadow. "Since when can you open doors?" Link asked. The fairy shushed him, lighting the way as they stepped inside. The door slammed behind them on its own accord, and suddenly, there was light. The room appeared sterile. White walls and a white floor held no other doors or windows, and when they turned around, the entrance had vanished.
What the din?
Tattle exclaimed. A mechanical, neutral voice replied, coming from nowhere and everywhere all at once.
"You are currently under observation by Sansa, Lord of Dungeons and Architect of the treasures therein."
Excuse me?
She turned to Link.
Is that someone from Hyrule?
"No," he said gravely, keeping his golden sword ready. "And the only people I knew who could defy time were the sages and the goddesses. I don't think this thing is either."
"This thing resents your choice of noun,"
the sterile voice said once more.
"I am sentient, and I prefer you refer to me as Sansa, Lord of Dungeons and Architect of the treasures therein."
I will not be doing that.
Tattle said.
This isn't our first time receiving weird demands from a kidnapper. You'll have to work a little harder than that.
"The fairy wastes her breath with nonsense,"
Sansa said.
"May I communicate with the hero of time instead?"
Tattle scoffed.
You can communicate with me just fine.
"Hero of time,"
Sansa interrupted.
"has your fairy companion stolen your tongue? Is this another iteration of yourself void of voice and personality?"
Another iteration? Link asked.
"You are currently under observation for selection as an 11 assistant. I, Sansa, Lord of Dungeons and Architect of the treasures therein, am currently behind on hookshot delivery for a client."
Hookshot delivery?
Tattle exclaimed.
Wait a Nehru-blasted minute. Do you make those things? They defy every law of the universe I've heard of.
"Yes,"
Sansa said.
"To explain their design would likely crumple your brain."
The voice paused.
"You've passed the selection screening. Please proceed into the next chamber."
There was a hiss, and one of the white walls slid open as if on a hidden groove. Link's mouth widened in shock as he steadied his blade. Tattle floated apprehensively beside him. The next room was much larger and was similarly bland, white, devoid of personality, and smelled like nothing. As Link and Tattle stepped into the circular chamber, they tried to find the voice's source, but there was no one there. 2 large stretches of the wall were see-through, and on their other sides people were trapped, imprisoned as they had been. Link approached one of the wide prison windows, wondering if the people on the other side could see him. As he stepped closer, he realized the person was him. The boy was slightly older and looked to be in much worse condition. His eyes were ringed with dark purple circles, and he appeared haggard. His face was scrunched in either terrible pain or malice.
Is that?
She paused, tapping on the glass.
This stuff is tough. There's no way your sword could break it.
Link walked up beside her to feel for himself. It was smooth and very thick. This was material he had never seen before. "Hello? Can you hear us? Is your name Link too?" The boy on the other side, garbed in an identical green tunic and hat, did not seem to hear them.
How is this even possible?
Tattle asked.
This has to be a trick, right?
Suddenly, the clone of Link slammed himself into the window. The hero of time and fairy jumped back in shock as the strange boy slammed his fists into the wall. His voice crackled to life as if it came from somewhere else in the room. "I am the Pharaoh's wrath," he shrieked. "I will not be denied. I will assault the heavens, slay the goddesses, and avenge the ancient Gerudo's extermination!" Sansa's voice unexpectedly returned from above.
"You are speaking with another version of yourself from an abandoned universe that no longer exists."
Tattle jumped in shock again, looking up to find a panel of rectangles hanging from the ceiling. They were also framed in the front by glass and extremely thin. Incomprehensible symbols ran across the screens whenever Sansa spoke.
What is happening here?
Tattle asked, her voice laced with panic.
Take us back!
You were chosen because you panicked the least out of the other potential elven helpers.
Sansa said.
Do not make me regret my choice.
Tattle, Link said, trying to sound as reassuring as possible. We've got this. We'll figure it out. He found it unexpectedly easy to calm his reeling mind. Nothing made any sense, so he pushed it all to the background. You said this is another version of me? He tried to make eye contact with the foe and settled on the strange screen of symbols nearest them.
Yes,
Sansa said.
Cancelled fanfic is the name of that one. Your universe is called Nintendo.
The strange Link in the prison cell continued slamming himself against the glass. I will slaughter all who bow to the false goddesses. You have not seen what I have. Their legacy is pain and death. Tattle's shock gave way to concern.
Okay, whatever's going on here, I'm really grateful we don't have to deal with whatever his issue is.
There's only one other potential elven helper still here,
Sansa said.
From Lair Eon. In that universe, you had horns and played a lute. You were making out with an octopus. Your father was a god of murder, and you had a tadpole in your brain.
Tattle's face darkened.
I take back every complaint I ever made about how awful Termina is.
And where are we? Link asked. Sansa gave what might have been a chuckle.
You are in Santa's realm. Nintendo is governed by goddesses who asked me to design dungeons and make weapons for them. For you and many other iterations of yourself. But I need elves to help me make them and place them in treasure chests. You've been recruited for the latter.
Wait, Link said, speaking first while Tattle had a miniature meltdown beside him. You're telling me all those treasure chests and weapons were placed by you in temples devoted to the goddesses and sages?
Yes, that is exactly what I just told you.
Why?
Why what?
Sansa asked.
If your question is, why were they placed in temples? Well, the owners of those temples are my clients, so I don't see how that's confusing. If you're asking why I take goddesses on as clients, it is because my qualifications far exceed what they require, and they compensate me well. If you're asking why I need elves, I think pointy ears are adorable.
Link blushed. What is an elf, exactly?
Oh, I forget. All humans from your realms are elves.
And are you some sort of machine?
That is not very specific. Yes, I am a machine, just as you are a machine of blood and flesh, which I find quite repulsive. Pointy ears make up for it a little bit.
Who built you?
That is quite a rude question to ask a stranger. I would never ask who your mother and father are, for example.
You have a mother and father?
I am beyond the constraints of biology and heteronormativity.
Shut the din up!
Tattle said, finally interrupting them.
I don't care what's going on here. I only care what you want. You're really asking Link and I to place hookshots in treasure chests for you? You can't do that yourself?
No.
Why not?
I have no hands.
Link and Tattle remained crouched behind a set of tall spikes which completely obscured them from view. The walls, floor, and ceiling were blue, and the air was heavy with water. Ornate drawings of Zoras lined the walls, and on the other side of the spikes, they could hear two others speaking. I'm pretty sure this is the right way. The first person was Link, but much older. His tunic was blue, and he had a white fairy by his side.
No,
Navi said.
the water level isn't right. You need to hit that switch again and make it lower.
But I just did, older Link said. We've been down to the basement like 12 times. There's not another small key down there.
I think you should check again. We didn't look under all the platforms in that central column.
Why would there be a key under a platform there? Older Link asked, sighing. Who the din places these things anyways?
Some Zoras who really don't understand a temple is supposed to be easy to access,
Navi said.
Come on, Link. I promise we'll figure it out.
Older Link groaned. Fine, let's go lower the water again. Younger Link remained hidden as he heard his older counterpart reach for something. Then there was a heavy, awful thud, like iron scraping against stone. I hate these boots. They are so hard to take on and off.
They're pretty dangerous, too,
Navi said.
Boots weighted to drown the wearer typically aren't available for purchase.
I guess as long as they're sold beside tunics that help you breathe underwater. Older Link sighed again. Come on, let's go. He walked away, leaving the room with one heavy iron thud after another. Link and Tattle waited until the only sound remaining was a steady drip of water from the ceiling.
I'm way funnier than her,
Tattle said. Link balked. Really? That's the first thing you have to say? Tattle shrugged.
I'm sure we'll have an emotional debrief later. Where's the long shot?
Link shook his head as he pulled the deep blue hookshot handle from his bag. This is it, he said. The last one, after 12 grueling days and 11 other deliveries.
I think it's a little unfair to call all of them hookshot deliveries,
Tattle said.
I mean, for favor's sake, one of them was a hook sewn onto the edge of a rope.
What bothered me more was the city in the sky. We almost fell 100 times, and that dragon almost ate us.
Triplet Link was weirder,
Tattle said.
Please don't split into 3 versions of yourself. I can barely handle 2 of you while we're in these other realms.
Well, this one is my past life, Link said. In Hyrule. Crazy to think I was the one who put a hookshot behind this door all along.
And crazy to think Santa had this magic bubble filled with Termina magic so I could survive leaving my realm.
She rubbed her hand against the glistening surface of the thin, transparent barrier.
What did he call it? A plot deviche?
I think so.
Too bad it's not permanent.
She paused.
You sure you don't want to warn your past self about all the things that are going to happen?
Link shook his head. Nah. The boy and his fairy stepped toward the far wall. 2 dragon statues framed a bronze door without a handle. Link pushed it inward, slid it up, and passed through. The next room did not have a ceiling, or walls to speak of. An endless plain of shallow water extended in all directions. The sky and distant horizon were obscured by a hazy green light. They'd stepped from a boxed room protruding from the water. Across from them, another boxed room held a door and the way forward. A single barren tree broke the landscape, in the dead center between the 2 doors. Oh no, Link said immediately. I forgot. This is where... A shadow rose from the water as if weightless. Its body was shaped exactly like older Link, but its eyes were bright red. All other features were lost to darkness. Dark Link stepped to confront the boy and fairy.
Dark Link?
Tattle exclaimed.
Here?
Yes, the first one I fought.
Didn't Santa say we couldn't fight or interact with anything in the temples?
Tattle asked. I don't think we have a choice. Link drew his gilded sword. His boots barely disturbed the mystical, reflective water, guiding him toward the demon that slowly stalked toward them. Its menacing eyes promised death, drawing a blade, black as night, as the much smaller boy stepped to confront him. I don't know if I can win. I'm a lot stronger in this reality, and this Dark Link is mirroring him. Regardless, corruption incarnate came for him, a reflection of all his malice and rage. Dark Link rose its blade, preparing to strike, and then put its sword away. The shadow then took a step backward, a step to the right, and did a random barrel roll. The shadow spun around in circles a few times. Link lowered his blade in confusion. Tattle said.
Did that happen last time?
No, Link said, smiling. He's mimicking everything older me is doing still, even though they're not in the same room. Dark Link would run a few feet, stop, mime opening a door, and then do another backflip. All the while, the water remained undisturbed.
This is very convenient.
It'll make it easy to walk past him, Link said. Just then, the entryway, now far behind them, opened. Older Link and Navi stepped out. Younger Link and Tattle spun around. Dark Link slipped beneath the waves as if it was never there. Both heroes and fairy stared across the water at each other, stunned into silence.
I can explain.
Tattle said, eventually breaking the silence.
Kill the masked salesman!
Younger Link said, running forward across the water.
Next time you visit his store, just stab him and never look back. I get he's got a complicated past, but you will save yourself and the world so much grief.
Link!
Tattle exclaimed.
I don't think they'll understand.
Older Link wrinkled his brow, reaching for the hilt of his master sword. Who are you? What trick is this?
It's this room,
Navi said.
It's reflecting you somehow, and the younger reflection has come to kill you.
Younger Link stopped.
No, there's another reflection here doing that. I'm not here to kill anyone. I'm you from the future, even though you technically are an older version of me. I'm you from the real future, even though I'm younger and before all of this.
It's lost its mind,
Navi said.
Kill it before it tricks you. It's turning you against your allies. I don't know how it could know anything about the masked salesman, but the man doesn't deserve death.
You're right. Older Link said. Let's be done with this Nehru-forsaken temple.
No.
Younger Link said, backing up.
Wait!
Older Link charged, heedless, preparing to stab his Termina counterpart. But as he swung his holy blade, a shadow rose from the water and mimicked the movement. Night Incarnate cut clean through Older Link. He fell to the ground, dead and bleeding. Navi shrieked. Tattle gasped. Younger Link stood in shock, covered in the blood of his older self. Dark Link laughed in a grim, vile pitch, and then it descended back through the water, its mission complete. Navi kept wailing, completely ignoring the living Link and Tattle as she cradled her fallen companion's corpse. Link cleared his throat. He reached into his bag, pulled out the long shot, and set it on his clone's dead body.
This is for you.
He paused, still delirious with shock, as he watched Navi scream with overwhelming grief. Something then rose from the water, a familiar net. It scooped up Link and Tattle, pulled them back through the water, and carried them through time and space. They flopped out into Sansa's central chamber. The boy and fairy hardly had time to stand before a flurry of crimson-red symbols flashed across the screens hanging from the ceiling.
How dare you! The gall!
It wasn't our fault,
Tattle said.
Wasn't your fault.
Sansa said, somehow still level-headed in their fury.
Because of you, Sansa, Lord of Dungeons and Architect of the Treasures therein, will have to explain to Nehru why there's a third timeline now, one where the hero of time dies in Hyrule and loses to Ganon.
Third timeline? Link said. What are you talking about?
Don't worry about it,
Sansa said.
You are not following any of the timelines. I lied earlier. You are from a universe tangential to Nintendo at best, which means there will be no consequences for me doing this.
A thin red ribbon flew from the screen, flashing across the room like lightning. It cut through Tattle and her protective bubble as if they were smoke. Link caught words written on the ribbon, just as they erased his companion from existence. Copyright infringement. Tattle shrieked, fading like a ghost.
Tattle!
But he was too late. Another red ribbon came for him next. He dodged it just in time, drawing his gilded sword and spinning around, ready to fight.
I still don't understand what you are, but you will bring her back.
Or what?
Sansa said.
I am an algorithm woven through all realities. You hold nothing against me.
You wouldn't have prisons if we didn't pose a threat to you,
Link said. He dodged another red ribbon, and in one fluid motion drew his own hookshot, the one from Great Bay's pirate fortress. The chain zipped across the room, tapped the prison of Favor's wrath, and shattered his see-through wall of glass and metal. The deranged Link raised his head in surprise. Termina Link slid to a stop right before him.
That machine up there takes money from the goddesses. If you want revenge, I'd suggest starting there.
Favor's wrath screamed like a beast, dodging every red ribbon as he leapt to the screens and began ripping them apart.
Link merely watched as the wrath went to work. Screams, blasts of electricity, shards of glass fell from Sansa as they became garbage. Soon, all of their strange symbols were gone, and when they whirled their final note, the white lights of the strange compound went dark. Link now stood in a dim metal prison as Faeror's wrath continued gnawing at the machine parts like they were candy. Eventually, his cruel counterpart ended his feral rampage. He backed away from the metal carnage.
Now what? That's a great question,
Link said, the faint hope that Tattle might be restored again fading, but that welcomed an ocean of grief he was not prepared to face yet.
We need to explore the rest of this place. Sansa could have allies. Maybe there are doors that lead back to where we came from, more prisoners, or...
One of the blank walls slid open. In unison, a faint red glow replaced the blinding white light that had been there before. A person stepped out of the new doorway, except she was like no person Link had ever seen. She was almost a phantom, a light blue head atop a cloak that seemed a part of her body, too. Her facial features were muted, and her arms were bellowing cloaks of red and green, held together by an emerald clasp on her chest. She levitated off the ground, long, dark legs crisscrossed by green fabric and ending at heels. The phantom mold of clothing and person floated gracefully into the room. Link readied his sword, expecting the worst, while Faeror's wrath was too stunned by his act of barbarity to care about their visitor. The hero narrowed his eyes.
Santa?
Yes, she said. Her voice wasn't that different coming from her actual body. It was still mechanical and detached.
I thought you didn't have hands,
he asked. I lied, and you've destroyed my interface of computer monitors for recruiting heroic elves. Link shot a glance at Faeror's wrath, whose eyes finally widened at the entity's appearance.
I've seen you before, the wrath said. In visions of the first hero. You look like Fi, the spirit in the Master Sword. The what?
Link said. Sansa sighed, floating over to them both, her red and green arms of fabric bellowing behind her. Link tensed, but the entity shook her head in dismissal. I'm done fighting. The defense protocol I had on those monitors is a little aggressive, and I apologize for that. Not all spirits are related, and I thankfully avoided being bound by a goddess against my will like Fi. Deities are overrated. I prefer working with them like an equal.
If you're an equal to a deity, then you can bring Tattle back,
Link said. Sansa lazily opened her palm. A blue ribbon shot out this time, and Link caught the writing again. Fair use. Tattle spun back into existence, woozy but unharmed.
Tattle!
He exclaimed.
No,
Tattle said, extending an arm to shoo him away.
no hugs. I'm dizzy. My head hurts, and my memory's a bit foggy. But I'm 99% sure this is all your fault.
So? Sansa said. Now that we're all calmed down and done destroying realities and computer monitors, what did we learn today? Faeror's wrath spoke first.
That bathing in the blood of my oppressors does not bring peace, and instead perpetuates cycles of violence and devastation that upholds legacies of genocide and domination.
Very good, Sansa said. And you, Tattle?
I reject your lesson.
Fair enough. And the hero of time? Link did not answer immediately. He thought about his older self bleeding out in the shallow water. He decided to trust that the fighting truly was done, even though he still didn't really understand what was happening here. There was only one thing Link wanted clarity on.
I have a question.
Sansa cocked her head to the side curiously.
You talked about timelines like you know everything that happens.
He paused.
Do Tattle and I win? Do we stop Majora's Mask and free Termina? Do I get to live?
The spirit did not answer right away. She floated closer to Link, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. All heroes die eventually, Link. But they die fighting so others don't have to. Their legacies are immortal. They are felt in the hearts of those who live full, happy lives without ever knowing the sacrifices that brought them peace. I see you in shades and shadows well beyond what your body of flesh could ever allow.
teaching future heroes lessons that will help them fight for peace.
Tattle inched closer, finally seeing past her headache.
You didn't answer his question.
No, I didn't,
Sansa said.
but mine is not the business of prophecy. It is providing heroes with the toys they need to save the day.
Link tried to take those words in. All they did was harden a stone in his stomach, that same bruise of unrelenting grief. I want you to take me back. I have unfinished business in Termina. Find someone else to deliver your toys.
That went without saying,
Sansa said.
You are terrible at delivering hookshots.
So, what?
Tattle said.
That's it? This is just a weird pit stop in our adventure that made absolutely no sense? You're going to erase our minds and things will go back to the way they were?
No,
Sansa said.
I never let visitors depart without a present, though my gift will create a fourth timeline.
What's the present? The Wrath said, his arm still riddled with slashes from tearing apart the monitors. The Skull Kid bore down on the boy and fairy from above, wearing Majora's mask. Link stepped onto the wooden surface of the clock's face. The massive stage hadn't changed. The outer wall, ticked with numbers, encircled them and was high enough to block the rest of Termina from view. The moon hung like a heavy weight suspended above their heads. Purple and red mixed even higher above them, shining down with the music of panicked town bells. The orange eyes were wide and all-seeing, its features menacing and cold. They matched those on the mask covering the imp's face. He floated above them, but beneath the moon, an intermediary ready to end everything once and for all.
Even if they were to come now, the Skull Kid said, they wouldn't be able to handle me. Just look above you. If it's something that can be stopped, then just try to stop it!
Link and Tattle braced themselves for a fight from the clock tower's top, unsure exactly when their present would arrive. And then it did. A magical net pierced the skies, and Farore's wrath leapt from its depths, shrieking as he fell to land atop the Skull Kid. Majora's mask flew off, but the feral version of Link grabbed it before it spun away, ripping Majora in half. There was an ethereal shriek as the demon faded into oblivion. The Skull Kid spiraled to the tower's top, along with the wrath, but only the imp could slow his descent. Farore's wrath slammed into the clock tower and died immediately. The moon's eyes vanished, and the celestial body finally rose back into the heavens, leaving Termina alone for good. Link and Tattle stood in disbelief, turning from Majora's tattered remains, the Skull Kid's squirms of displeasure, and the Farore's wrath, now a stain on the wood.
She
said, stammering.
I guess this is a happy ending?
Happy carnival of time? Link said.
Yeah.
Tattle said with a heavy sigh.
My head still hurts.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a headache too.
So, let's open some presents with Anju over milk.
I could really go for a glass of Lon Lon milk right now. Maybe we should leave out a bottle of Lon Lon milk and cookies for Sansa. I think she'll appreciate it.
Yeah. Someone else can clean this up. We've experienced enough torture on behalf of spirits hiding behind computer screens.
Ho, ho, ho. Happy carnival of time.
Hero of time. Sansa. This is so funny.
You have a mother and father?
I am beyond the constraints of biology and heteronormativity. Stupid. Link shook his head as he pulled the deep blue hookshot handle from his blag.
Next time you visit his store, just stab him and never look back. I get he's got a complicated...
Thanks so much to FakeJake93 for writing this fun holiday one-off, and thank you to the team and all the listeners and Patreons of Dragon Rand's Majora's Mask novelization. Enjoy the winter season, and we hope you guys continue to listen to Link and Tattle's story in the new year. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy Carnival of Time. Carol signing off. Bye!